Hi, I'm Dr. Diva Boone of the Southwest Parathyroid Center. Welcome to the Parathyroid Education course, where I am going to cover all topics related to parathyroids. In this first video, I want to get started by just covering the basics of what the parathyroid glands are and what they do. So, what are parathyroid glands? Well, parathyroid glands are tiny glands located in your neck. They are right next to the thyroid. The thyroid's here, and parathyroid glands are tiny little glands located near the thyroid. And they're called parathyroid because para means next to, and they are next to the thyroid typically. That's actually all that they have to do with the thyroid. The thyroid is a completely separate endocrine organ. The parathyroids are tiny little endocrine organs that do one thing, which is regulate your calcium. So, why is calcium important? Well, if you ask most people would tell you that calcium is really important for your bones. And that's true. Your bones rely on calcium for their structure and their strength, and it's very important to have enough calcium for that reason. But calcium actually does a lot of other stuff in the body, and your parathyroid glands are regulating your blood calcium level. And blood calcium is important for multiple things. The major things being the nervous system, like your brain and peripheral nervous system and your muscles. Cells throughout your body need calcium for signaling. The nervous system in particular needs it for signaling from one nerve to the other. So if your brain is sending a message to your muscles, or your eyes are sending a message through your brain, those connections depend on calcium. And within each other cells in your body, that signaling, that communication between cells depends on calcium. Even calcium in your blood level is important for blood clotting. So normal blood clotting is necessary so that we don't bleed to death when we cut ourselves. And calcium is part of that. If you don't have calcium, your blood can't clot properly. So for all of these reasons, especially the functioning of the nervous system, calcium is really important. And it's very important to keep it in a tight range within your blood. You don't want it to be too high or too low. And that's what the parathyroid glands are for. The parathyroid glands exist to regulate that blood calcium level. So again, you've got 4 of them. They are regulating your calcium. How do they regulate calcium? Well, they are sensing the calcium levels all the time. Throughout the day, your blood's going through these parathyroid glands, and they are sensing the calcium, and they are responding to that calcium level by making parathyroid hormone. So the parathyroid glands are quite simple. They make just one hormone. It's called parathyroid hormone, or PTH, and that is how they regulate your calcium. Now, PTH controls your calcium in your blood primarily 3 ways. The first thing that the parathyroid glands do when you make more PTH, first thing that PTH does is go to the bones and convince the bones to release more calcium. So calcium, actually, most of it in your body is stored in your bones. So this is a major storage area, and the fastest way to get your blood calcium level up is simply to release some calcium from the bones. So that's the first thing that PTH is going to do. Go to the bones, release the calcium. The next thing it does is go to the kidneys, and it does 2 things there. The first thing is it convinces the kidneys to not release as much calcium into the urine. So throughout the day, your kidneys are filtering your blood, they're making urine, and they're putting some amount of calcium into the urine. So you're losing a little bit of calcium all the time, basically, into the urine. Well, when PTH goes to the kidneys, it stops that, and it holds on to more of that calcium. So you can raise your blood calcium by not losing it into the urine. The third thing that PTH does is also in the kidneys, and that is to stimulate the conversion of the inactive form of vitamin D to the active form. And why does that matter? Well, activated vitamin D goes to the intestines and increases the amount of calcium that you absorb. We're always getting some calcium from our diet, and we're absorbing some amount of that, but we can absorb more of it from the intestines, meaning take more of it up into the blood if we have activated vitamin D. So vitamin D goes to the intestines, increases that absorption of calcium. So there's 3 things PTH is doing: taking calcium out of the bones, keeping the calcium from going into the urine, and also increasing the absorption of calcium in the intestines. So PTH does all of that, and the outcome of that is to increase your blood calcium level. Parathyroid glands are sensing the calcium all the time. If the calcium level is too low, they make more PTH. If the calcium level is too high, they stop making PTH, which reverses all of the things I mentioned. And that will allow the blood calcium level to drop back down into a normal range. And for normal functioning parathyroid glands, this is happening all the time without you thinking about it. They are always regulating your calcium and keeping it in a good range. So to recap the parathyroids, parathyroid glands are tiny glands in your neck. You've got 4 of them, typically right around the thyroid here. They function primarily or solely to regulate your blood calcium level. And they do that by making parathyroid hormone. Parathyroid hormone controls your calcium by controlling the calcium coming out of your bones, increasing calcium absorption from the kidneys, and increasing calcium absorption in the intestines. All of this serves to keep your calcium level at all times in a fairly tight range because your nervous system, your brain, your blood, and all the cells throughout your body depend on having a stable and tight range of calcium. When there's a problem with parathyroid glands, usually it's a problem of calcium, and you'll see that because the calcium level is going out of range. We will start talking about that next time when we get to primary hyperparathyroidism, which is typically a disease of high calcium. But for now, those are the basics. Thank you for joining.